Hello, 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 and welcome to your week 13 vlog presented by BMJR himself. Before we get started, quick shout out to our sponsors, Celsius Energy, clean energy at an efficient price. Now, as most of you know, I'm not the biggest fan of the weekly recaps. I watch everyone's matchup every week. I don't need one of you guys telling me what happened. I obviously know what happened. I like to believe a majority of you guys do as well. So I'm going to do a slightly different approach to my vlog. What I'm going to do now is, as you know, after the draft, Yahoo gives everyone a draft grade, right? Well, I went back through every single person's draft, highlighted some positives, highlighted a bunch of negatives, and gave everybody a BiRDiE draft grade 13 weeks in. So, pretty straightforward, grades A through F, and let's get right to it. We'll start at the back end. No surprises here. We got Milton with the only draft grade F. Just overall one of the worst drafts I've ever seen in my life, and definitely one of the worst in-season teams ever. Like, this guy had terrible pickups. He didn't try to make any trades. Just an overall abysmal effort. Some really, really bad picks he had. I mean, DK in the second seemed a little early, but JT in the third with the contract dispute. Deshaun Watson in the fourth as like the fourth or fifth quarterback taken off the board. Just elite level terribleness. And, I understand Milt had a bad year. I'm not going to hold it against him, but I do like to believe he's going to come back with slightly more of a vengeance next year. I hope so, but Yahoo did give him an A pre-draft, so let's just remember that and Milton pick it up. But moving on to the real people in the league here, I'm going to go to our draft grade D. I got three people in the D category, and we're going to start off with Dietz. Dietz is just a great example of nothing working out quite as planned. Eckler at pick 4 must haunt his dreams every single night. His wide receiver room consisted of Scary Terry, Deontay Johnson, JSN, and Juju. Just one of the worst wide receiver rooms I think you could ever draw up. All this rounded out by Kyle Pitts in the 6. It was a good thing he got Josh Allen as a third QB off the board. Definitely the best QB this year. Wasn't hard to really assume that, but he had one great draft pick, which I do have to tip my cap off to him. It's Nico Collins in the 10th. So, Dietz, congrats on that. I know you'll beat me in the standings. Good luck if you make it to playoffs, but overall, pretty terrible draft. Next up in the D category, we got Pepper. This team here, I was looking at it, just screams mediocre. Like, of course, Pepper gets Kelsey in the first, but just bust all around after that. His RB room consisted of Najee Harris and James Conner. His wide receivers, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, and even where he got T-Law, it was extremely early in the 5th round. The only bright side on Pep's team was he did draft Gus Edwards in the 13th round, but obviously he didn't hold him long enough. Now, I know everyone's going to be all freaking out because Pepper's like up there at the top of the standings, but he's just getting extremely lucky, barely averaging 100 points a week, and his team is all around pretty bush league, to say the least. And rounding out the D grade category, we got Blim. This team sucks. Blim had a terrible 1-2 start with Saquon Barkley and Garrett Wilson, neither of which in the top 25. Next up, he missed on both his RB2s badly with J.K. Dobbins and Jamal Williams. I understand he lost Mark Andrews, but aside from Herbert, every other pick he had was trash. The only reason Blim even got the 3 or 4 wins that he has is because he got Dallas D in the 11th round. Yahoo also gave Blim an A+, to say the least. All right, so moving on up, we're done with the Fs, we're done with the Ds. I'm going to move on to the draft grade Cs. These are decent teams, but there's just too many glaring issues with these guys, and I have 3 teams in this group. First up, we got JJ. Probably outside of Dietz, the second worst first-round pick with Cooper Kupp. He had good picks after that with ETN in the second, Keenan Allen in the fourth. Both paid off for him extremely well. But as expected, after that, Jamie drafted a bunch of trash. Most notably, Dalvin Cook in the 7th round. But I do have to tip my hat to JJ. Everything might be a little bit different if A-Rich shouldn't go down that early in the year. But other than that, Jamie's team is pretty bad all around. I think he's got to look at his draft for that reason. Next up, we got Alf. Alf himself also got a draft grade C. It's just one of those teams that looks so good on paper. He drafted like a veteran, and I was impressed. I mean, AJ Brown arguably could have went top five. Probably will be up there next year. But he took the gamble on the Cincinnati stack of Higgins and Burrow, and ultimately that did not pay off. Surprisingly, two of Alf's best picks came in the middle rounds, with T.J. Hawkinson in the fourth and Isaiah Pacheco in the fifth. But overall, Alfred's team lacked a little bit and left a little bit to be desired. But I think we could all easily blame that on the Cincy stack he went in on, and it could have been any of us. Lastly, this will probably be a contested opinion, but I'd say the last team with a draft grade of a C would have to go to the Booty Boys. I hated this draft in Denver. I still don't like it much right now. I mean, Tyreek Hill at pick 5 was really just a gift from Yams, but outside of that, not great. He got Aaron Jones in the second, Debo in the third, Justin Fields in the fourth. Just extreme reaches all around that ultimately didn't really pay off for him that well in the long run. His middle rounds were good with Michael Pittman and Swift, but San Francisco D in the seventh was just a terrible pick. They're not even top 5 defense in the league, and just an extreme reach. But I do have to tip my hat off to these guys. They did get Raheem Mostert in the ninth, one of the best picks of the draft, and probably the only reason that they're even still in the conversation. But I think it's safe to say that two heads are not better than one when it comes to drafting in person. So now that we're done with the D, F, D, and C, we're going to move up one round to the draft grade B. And these ones I like to say are just about one or two bad picks. And the first person up here I got is Yams. Yams took some great reaches in the draft on some rookies with Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Dalton Kincaid. It was an extremely risky move by Yams to wait till the 7th round to get his RB2, but David Montgomery ended up being, one of the best picks that he had in the draft. Other than that, he had some bad draft day decisions, like taking Jamar Chase over CMC and Tyreek, taking Jalen Hurts before Josh Allen. But overall, I only have one issue with Yams' draft. It was taking Drake London in the 4th. Just an absolute ridiculous pick. He did bounce back from the Mike Williams injury, but Yams could easily be up there in first place if the draft went a little different for him. And this one might be a little surprising to some people, but the other team I have as a draft grade B is going to be Tim Burner. This is a pre-draft team that I just loved. Stephon Diggs, Chris Olave, Lamar Jackson, Cam Akers, Miles Sanders, Chris Godwin. All of them just great picks. I would have loved to have any of them. None of them panned out. Now, I feel extremely bad for Tim because I know he wanted to make trades. He just had no one on his team to trade with. But I do want to remind everybody that Tim looks like he's out of the Butler race, but he's not even anywhere close. This dude has no points at all. If Milton and Blim get wins in the last week and Tim loses, he'll easily be Butler. But other than that, great drafted team, Tim, but just a horrible season all around. Lastly, I got to get to the heavy hitters. These are the teams that I gave a draft grade A to. You won't be surprised. A lot of these guys are at the top of the standings. They've been competing all year, but they just had a great draft, and that's what really makes draft research important for the rest of y'all. So I'll start off with Johnny. This dude just came out firing this draft. He had a killer 1-2 punch with Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, rounded out by 4 pre-draft darlings on the wide receiver front with Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Kirk, Michael Thomas. Dude just had bad luck this year. Some huge injuries with Kirk Cousins and Nick Chubb, paired with some really ill-timed trades that he completed there. But if some things went a little different for Johnny this year, he could have easily went undefeated. I tip my hat off to him. Best pick of his draft was Jacoby Myers in the 11th. And Yahoo also gave him a C+. Next up, we got Snake. Snake also got a draft grade A. People can talk shit about Snake's skills as a manager all you want. It doesn't really matter who his mentors are, but this kid drafted a hell of a team. Nothing but value. We have back-to-back Bijan and Pollard to round out his RB room right at the front. He rounds it out with DJ Moore and Evans in the wide receiver room, and then he gets Tua at the helm. Snake got Tua in like the 8th. It was like the 10th QB off the board. But his best pick by far, getting DJ Moore in the fourth, just elite level drafting here. Yahoo also gave him a C plus. Congrats, Snake, on a good year this year. Next up, we got Kenny. Just one of the best drafts I've seen in a while. He was gifted CMC at pick 3, obviously, but this kid just continued to build. Immediately nabbed up Mahomes, rounded that out with Ridley, Ayuk, James Cook. I considered him early on all those picks when we were in Denver, but it took a lot of guts. It paid off nicely for Kenny. Got a little dicey in the middle rounds for him, but all was forgotten when he nabbed up Adam Thielen in the 10th round, one of the best drafts, or one of the best picks in the entire draft. So Kenny, keep it up. Great year. Go Niners. And the last team I have here in grade A, I won't go on too long about him, but I would have to say it probably goes to myself, BiRDiE. I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but I did have one of the best drafted teams on paper. 13 weeks in, ends up being one of the most underperforming teams in the league. But I do want to remind everyone, I personally had the sickest pick in the draft. That would be Tank Dell, final round of the draft. Yes. Yahoo gave me a D minus, probably right. Last but not least, I did have to give one team a grade A plus. That would be Chuck. I encourage everyone to go back to the draft page. Look at Chuck's 2023 pick draft. Every single pick this guy had was nothing but gold. I have nothing to say about Chuck's team except that he's just a straight up powerhouse. But I want to remind everyone that Chuck did draft A-Chain, his 9th round pick, and dropped him after week 1. Let's all just imagine what Chuck's team would look like if he never really dropped A-Chain. Well, anyway, it's been a fun year. I'm super butthurt about losing to James, but I still have a sliver of hope of making playoffs. So I will come out. I will beat Chuck, or I will beat Snake this week. Madge will lose. Dietz will lose, and your boy BMJR will be riding into playoffs playing his boy Chuck. Anyways, love y'all. Good luck. See you on the other side.